Hello, everyone. Welcome to Purpose YouTube. My name is Dusty Small, and I'm the lead pastor here at Purpose Church. As many of you know, Purpose Church is a brand new church located right in the heart of Bossier City, Louisiana. We're so glad you're here to watch today's message. Before we get started, would you comment there in the chat section? Let us know your name and where you're watching from. Let me know what you're believing God for right now in your life and how I can pray for you. And one last thing, as God begins to speak to you through this message, would you comment there in the chat section? Let us know what God's speaking to you about. I love to go back and see how God's moving in your life. We hope today's message will encourage you and your family. A new sermon series today entitled Breaking Cycles. Can you say that with me? Breaking Cycles. Anybody ever feel like you've been stuck in the mud sometimes? And I don't mean literally just out in the mud. Some of you probably been stuck in the mud, stuck on ice, stuck something, right? But I mean, sometimes it can feel like we're just spinning our tires. Sometimes it feels like this cycle just continues to repeat itself, right? Wash, rinse, but we're not really rinsing. We're just trying to wash, but we find ourselves stuck in the washing machine, but nothing's getting clean, right? We're just constantly on that cycle. And I think this message is so important for us. This series is so important for us because once we can break the cycles that hold us hostage, you can live at a level that God's called you to live. I don't just believe you're divinely designed, but I truly believe the Word of God when it says He is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think. There was a time in my life where you'd have told me, one day, Dusty, you're going to be a pastor. One day, you're going to be a church planner. You're going to plant a church. I would have looked at you and said, you are crazy. You have lost your ever-loving mind, right? I'd have been like, whatever I could have come up with, I would have said it with such fierceness because I thought you're crazy, right? And then the Lord comes into my life, and I just keep saying, here I am, Lord, send me. And He does things that I never thought He would have done. And if you would just open your heart to this series that we're going to engage in over the next 3 weeks. Today I'm talking about just breaking cycles in general. Next week I'm going to talk about breaking cycles in relationships. Anybody ever been in a bad relationship? Anybody ever been in 2 bad relationships? You need to break a cycle, right? Right? I mean, I'm not just talking about dating. I'm not just talking about marriage. I'm talking about just in general. Sometimes we don't choose good friends. Come on. You see what I'm saying? We need to break some cycles with that. And then I'm going to talk about the third week. I'm going to talk about, y'all are smiling like this. I think I hit, that's going to be a good one. All right. Breaking the cycle in families, right? We need to break some cycle. There's some things in our families that y'all don't need to be passing on to the next generation. We got to break some stuff. And so breaking the cycle in our families is going to be the third week in this. But I want to set this up by taking you back into my life. And I can remember whenever I was about to graduate high school, there was this exit survey type thing that we were going to do. And one of the questions on there was, what do you think your life will be like in 10 years? What are your 10-year goals? Now, I had never thought about what was going to happen in my life in 10 years, but like any senior who was 17 years old about to graduate, I just started to think I need to write down all the best things, right? I need to think about all of the things that I aspire to be. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to, all of these hopes and dreams, right? Because you're thinking, I want good things. I want great things to happen in my life. But can I tell you this, and don't judge me when I say this, but I'm just going to be real with you. 10 years after I graduated high school, I was sitting in a jail cell, and I was facing 40-some years in prison because I was a drug addict, a drug dealer, because I had become a drunk. Yet, rewind 10 years, and I'm telling you all these amazing things that I'm going to do. Fast forward 10 years, and here I am, broken and hopeless, feeling like my life doesn't have purpose. Can I tell you that nobody plans to mess up their life, but somehow we do? Why is it that it seems a whole lot easier to mess things up than to get things right? Come on, can I get a witness in here? Anybody ever feel like sometimes it's a whole lot easier to mess stuff up than it is to get things right? I mean, the second law in thermodynamics, the law of entropy, talks about how everything is just moving towards a state of chaos. And it just seems like our lives can always be moving toward a state of chaos. But I want to tell you today, it doesn't have to be that way. Your life doesn't have to move toward a state of chaos. You don't have to be that person that just is constantly messing up their life, making poor decisions. You can be a person who makes decisions. You can be a person today who can break some cycles in your life and begin to elevate yourself so that you're not always just jealous and envious of people who are elevating themselves. It can be you. Come on, it can be you. Your future is not predicated on how dysfunctional your past was or wasn't. You can have the most dysfunctional past, but you can have a great future, because the Bible tells me this in 2 Corinthians chapter 5:17. Therefore, if any man or woman be in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things pass away. Behold, all things become new. And so you can be made new. You can break some cycles. You don't have to normalize, watch this, dysfunction. You don't have to settle for things less than what God has promised you in His Word. And that is not a prosperity message. I'm simply saying that the truth of God's Word is that He wants no man or woman walking around bound up in a yoke of slavery to some sort of behavior, mindset, attitude, whatever you want to call it, substance abuse. He doesn't want us, self-medicating, coping. He wants you to be free. He wants you to be free. And I'm one that I can say this, and I can say it with passion because I've been on both sides of the fence, and you don't have to like me when I say it, but I don't believe once an addict, always an addict. I don't believe I'm still in recovery. I don't say, hello, my name is, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but I'm telling you, I was as drunk as any drunk in this room. I was as addicted as any addicted man in this room. And I'm telling you today, I'm not still in recovery. I'm free, and I'm living free. I'm just telling you. We can argue back and forth, but I'm telling you, I've been there. And I've been 22 years free. And I've been 22 years walking, and I've never touched another drug. I've never touched a drop of alcohol. I don't cuss anymore, believe it or not. And I had a foul mouth. I mean, a foul one. It stank, and I stanked it up all the time. But I've got free from that. And I'm just telling you, you can be free. And I'm telling you these things because if you're walking around less than, you need to hear it today. You can be free. And I'm sure some of you had some messed up lives, but let's go toe to toe. Let's go. Meet me after church and let's talk about it, because I'm telling you, this was a messed up individual, a very messed up individual. All right, I set the stage, right? Now let me ask you some questions. I want to reflect with you. Now, I'm trying to brag on Jesus, right? That's what I'm trying to do. Do you have an area of your life? I want you to, do you have just one thing in your life that didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out? Anybody in here can relate to this? Is there something you need to stop doing right now? Not tomorrow. We're not going to start this thing tomorrow. I'm talking about today. Is there anything in your life you need to stop doing today? And is there anything in your life you need to start doing today? Come on, let's get real. Somebody in here needs to stop doing something, surely. Come on. And you need to start doing something. Even if it's just the laundry, right? Even if it's just getting the underwear close to the basket. Just start getting it in the basket, for crying out loud. Come on, right? I'm trying, wives. I'm trying. Come on. So what thing, what attitude, what behavior is holding you hostage this morning? What is that one thing that if you could just get it out of your life, Picture it like this. If it was the backpack on my back, and we're going to run from here, and I don't know why in the world we would do this, but if we were going to run to Popeyes because they finally said they have everything in stock, and we can definitely get chicken today, we can definitely get our biscuit, they're going to have honey, you want some fries, they're going to have everything, the red beans and rice, they're going to have soda, they're going to have straw, they got it all. Right? I'm offended with Popeyes, but if we were going to run there and we all put on this heavy backpack, right? Wouldn't it be, if we would just take it off, wouldn't we run better? Wouldn't you run better? Wouldn't you feel better when you got there? I don't know. I doubt it, but we'll work on that part later. Hey, here's what I'm going to do for us. I'm not going to have you turn in your Bibles this morning. I know that seems to contradict everything that I tell you. I want you to stay in tune because I'm going to read you a few verses from different places to build where we're going this morning. But if you are taking notes, write this one down. Proverbs 26:11. Proverbs 26:11 says this. As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness. Now, I want you to engage with it right now. There's two words that stick out to me. Say return. As a dog returns to its vomit. Now, when you see the word so, he's going to tell you, he's going to compare it, right? We're going to have this comparison here. So a fool does what? Repeats. So the dog returns and the fool repeats, but we're doing the same thing, right? One's returning, one's repeating. We're continuing to be in a cycle that when others look at us, they're like, that guy's kind of foolish. And Solomon is comparing us who get stuck in cycles that control our lives like a dog returning to their vomit. Anybody, watch this. Have you ever, you have seen it. We're just going to get graphic. We're talking about Popeyes and your bellies are good, right? But anybody ever have dogs? Anybody ever seen your dog vomit and then they go over there and eat it, right? If you haven't, imagine with me. Come on, go there. Go there this morning. Right, imagine your dog vomiting and going over and eat it. What are you thinking? My gosh, what is wrong with this dog? Right? Like, what's going on in our life? We're the same when we're bound up in these cycles. So a fool repeats his foolishness. I'm no better than the dog who's going over and eating his own vomit. Why do you want to do that? I don't know. Say it. Why do I keep doing this? I don't know. That's why you're doing it, because you don't know, right? I set you up, and I didn't even tell you to pull your toes back. But here's the will of God for you. I want you to have the word right now. This is the will of God. That's our statement. That's our baseline. I want you to know you're looking foolish if you're stuck in a cycle. I'm not trying to pick on you this morning. I'm just trying to tell you I believe for better. I believe for better for the people of purpose. Come on, if you're online right now and you're watching, say, but we're believing for better. We're believing for a little bit better of a meal this afternoon than returning to my own vomit, right? Okay, now moving on, and I'm not going to bring that part back up again. But Galatians 5:1, write this one down. Write it down. And hear what it says. Paul, talking to the church of Galatia, says this: so Christ has truly set us free. Now, look, Christ has set you free. Now, after he sets us free, he says, now guess what? Make sure that you stay free. If Jesus sets us free, now I have some responsibility in this. Make sure you stay free. He's freeing us up. Now you got to make sure you stay free. You got some skin in the game. If you just walk around and you're thinking like, oh, I'm just never going to have to work at this thing. No, you got to work at it. Nobody walks up into the gym and starts benching 300 just because they got there, right? Going to the gym doesn't make you stronger no more than going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. Come on, you got to do something. You eat too many hamburgers, you might look like one. I'm sorry, I'm not picking. Now make sure you stay free. Make sure you stay free. Come on. So we've got to break some cycles in our life, right? We can come to the altar and get right with God, but some of us pick stuff up and we take it back to our seat. And so God's saying this morning, he wants to set us free from some things. And don't get tied up or entangled or yoked up with this slavery type mindset. You don't have to be a slave to the cycle. You don't have to be a slave to that thing. You don't have to be a slave to that behavior. You don't have to be a slave to that addiction or that mindset. God's saying this morning, you can be free. Anybody want it? Anybody want it this morning? I got my front row crew. I'm trying to get to the middle. We're going to work our way back. I see you in the back there. I'm going to hear you. Come on. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to focus on just breaking a cycle in general. Okay, not just the cycle of sin, but we have some cycles that basically, I would say it like this, impede us because they trip us up. They become an obstacle, or in some cases, they've become this yoke or chains, language that we might use for that, and they're controlling us. And so often one of the things, if you were like me, we can say to ourselves, how did I get here? How does one wind up at 27 years old, sitting in a jail cell, facing, how does that happen? How does someone who might have been in a place where they would have said, he had everything going for him, but he had every opportunity. He had all of these things, but now he's sitting in jail. Can I tell you, rarely do we wake up one day and our lives are just out of control. Rarely do we ever wake up. Now, I pull your toes back if this one may get you on this, but anyone ever been this person or had a person who calls you with an emergency that really isn't an emergency, so much of it is a result of poor planning and preparing? Can I just tell you there's a difference between you having a flat tire and then you calling me saying, hey, my water's going to get shut off today. Come on, I'm not trying, come on. I'm just saying, like, hold on a second. Let me think. Now, I will say this. If your tire has been going flat for a week and you just chose not to go put some air in it, that's a different type of situation. That one's on you, bro. But I'm saying, like, there's a difference between, boom, all of a sudden my tire is flat and now I got a situation versus, oh, my water's going to get shut off today. No, bro, you knew that you didn't pay the bill last month. Right, you knew this has been, call me when we got some time to plan. Now I'm scrambling. Now I got you. No, I don't want to live in that chaos. No, I don't want to live in worry. Like, we can help and we can work, but don't call me the day of. You see what I'm saying? So there's a difference that we don't just wake up and get here, but how does it happen, right? How do we get here? I'll tell you, one thing leads to another. One compromise leads to another. One shortcut leads to another, right? One wrong step leads to another. Now, every once in a while, there's an anomaly type situation where all of a sudden you wake up and you get a call and something happens out of your control. And all of a sudden life gets crazy. But I'm putting those over there in a different compartment. I'm saying today, most of the things that we're dealing with, we just didn't wake up there and things got out of control. It was one decision led to another, one thing led to another, one compromise led to another, one shortcut led to another, one wrong step led to another wrong step. Which is why it's so important to take the next right step, make the next best decision. Some of you can be so focused on what's a mile ahead of you when you don't realize that the next step is the most important step in the mile ahead of you. Come on. You need to hear that. It's the next step. Some of you are so focused, I want this, I want that, right? I want a great job. I want a good spouse. I want all of these wonderful things, but you're not sowing the right seeds today. You're not taking the right seeds today. You're not living like I want those things now. You just think that somebody's going to come along, sprinkle some pixie dust on your head, and it's all going to fall into your lap, right? You just think it's all I need is one viral video. So many of the ones who just had the one viral this or that didn't have the character to keep them where they were elevated to. I want to ask you this question, and I'd set it up like this. How many of you, simple, have ever heard of a person in the Bible named Samson? Anybody ever heard of Samson? Now, it's interesting enough because Samson is someone who had just extraordinary potential. He was called by God. He had a mission. He had purpose, right? He had just this wonderful hair, this amazing strength. Yet, how could somebody like Samson go from hero to zero? How does something like this happen? Samson is so well known that here we are, knowing about someone thousands of years after his life. I mean, unless you do something just so extraordinary that they name a street after you and they name a holiday after you, most likely in 2,000 to 3,000 years, nobody's going to remember me or you. But we remember Samson. We remember Samson. Why? Because he had extraordinary potential. He had just an incredible call on his life. And I want you to see this, because when it comes to how did we get here, I want you to see exactly how someone like Samson could end up in the place that he did. Judges chapter 16, verse 1 says, one day, say that with me, one day, Samson went to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. Now, I don't know about you when you read that, but it just sounds so strange and out of the normal. And it could say, well, wait a minute. How does somebody get themselves to where one day they decide to wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to the Philistine town of Gaza, and I'm just going to find me a prostitute. That's what I'm going to do today. Can I tell you that this was a long journey from where Samson was to where Samson was going? Even though one day he just woke up and decided he was going to do something like this, because this is what began to spiral his life out of control. He had one step after another to think about the decision that he was going to make that was going to ultimately be the downfall of his life. And I think in every step there's some grace. In every step God gives us, there's grace and mercy for us to turn back and not follow through with something, right, that is going to destroy our life. One day, Samson went to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. I want you to hear this. Step by step, you end up in a bad cycle. Step by step. He didn't trip. Come on, he didn't fall. We're good at that though, right? We're good at saying, oh, I just tripped up a little bit in my sin. Oh, I just fell. No, brother, you walked all the way from where you were. You had a long walk. It wasn't like you got an Uber. It wasn't like you had your headphones on and you just lost track of time while they were driving you to go do the thing. No, bro, you walked there one step after another. You ended up in Gaza, and now you're doing something that's going to just destroy your life. From hero to zero. Somebody with such great potential lost his dignity. He lost his hair. He lost his sight. After he lost his sight, he became a prisoner, and he ultimately lost his life. And I'm not preaching this today, but I think there's something spiritual about you begin to lose your dignity by making decisions. I think there was something about his identity that was found in his hair. And then I think when he began to lose his sight, he began to be spiritually dull. I think it could be said there. And then I think as he began to become a prisoner, what happens is in your cycle, when you become dull and you no longer experience the conviction that was once so red hot, and now it's just numb because you're numb, then you become a prisoner to your sin. You normalize your dysfunction. You normalize the cycle that you're in. You deceive yourself into thinking you're something that you're not, and you live this broken, beat up life, and like Samson, he ends up losing his life. It's a whole story there, a whole story that can unfold, but that's not where we're going today. That's just the stuff you get for free. Little side stuff. That's just your appetizer right there. How does someone though, like seriously, you know people like this, right? You know people that you've seen that have so much potential, and you may be like me, you may have been one of those. Had so much potential, but I ended up messing up my life. It's like Samson, we do it. How do we do it? One step at a time, one decision at a time. Now, I think I'd be remiss to not talk about this, but before I get into a couple steps that I think can liberate some people today, I want to address why I think it's so hard to start new habits. Because I think this can help us as I give you some information. So why is it so hard to start new habits? We can have great intentions, but poor execution and follow through. Come on, you can have a bright idea, but poor execution and follow through. Anybody ever been guilty of that? I've been guilty of it, if I'm being honest with you, right? If I'm just being transparent today, I've had a great idea, and then I've just not followed through on it. I've just not put the things in place to do it, right? But I think there's something even more that applies to our situation when it comes to breaking cycles. You don't want to treat that person that way again. I don't want to use that drug again. I don't want to go back to that relationship again. I don't want to do this. I want to stop doing that, and I'm very sincere about it. But why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Because the pain to change seems greater than the results. Can I say it again? The pain to change seems to be so great than that thing that's way up ahead of me. Right? Watch it like this. We go to the gym. We're going to start dieting. We're going to start the cardio. But guess what? The results are slow to come. I've got a bright idea. I want to lose 10 pounds, but how many of you know it just doesn't happen overnight? You can go to the gym and not see results for a long time. You can start your dieting and you'd be like, you get on the scale and now I'm up 2. I'm up 2. Wait. I didn't eat like I ate yesterday. Right? It doesn't come off in one day. It's hard. You want to start your cardio because you want to start taking care of your heart. How many of you know that after the first time and you feel like you need some oxygen because your whole body's shutting down, you're sweating, and you look and you're like, whoa, I didn't even do a quarter of a mile. I was just going to try to do a mile today, right? And it just is so overwhelming, right? Because the results are delayed. Pain is now. Results are delayed, pain is now. That's why the pain change outweighs the results, because the pain right now seems so great. It seems so difficult to get up every day and go to the gym. It seems so difficult to go do that walk. It seems so difficult. Why? Because the sweets taste good now. The potato chips taste good now. The packaged items are easy. It's so much easier to go grab something that I can just warm up real quick than make a meal that's healthy. Come on. Or it's so much easier to stop by a restaurant or a fast food place. It's just so much easier. Side note for Jesus, you'd have more money to give to Jesus. With bad habits, though, it's just the opposite, right? It tastes good now, right? The pain to change it, the pain is now. Going to the gym, that's hard. Not eating stuff I shouldn't eat, right? That's hard now. But when I went out there after service and they gave me a lecture on that. I'm in here preaching about diet, and then we put all the sweets out there, right? But man, did that cookie taste good. They're going to be really good for you after service. And then after today, you're going to want to start that tomorrow. I don't know, maybe I didn't think all that through, but you get the heart of it. See, but what tastes good now makes me feel bad later. The devil loves to help tempt you into doing something that you think is going to be so great now. And in the moment you buy into it, what's he do? He tells you how much of a low-down, dirty scoundrel you really are. Oh, you don't love God. Oh, you don't love Jesus. Look at you now. Oh, all you are is about the instant gratification, right? Oh, you're going to go back to church on Sunday, right? You're going to raise your hands up in there and dance and shout, talk about how much you love Jesus. You ain't loving Jesus now? He's good at that. Come on. He's good at that. First step in breaking the cycle, though, I want you to hear this. You got to identify the cycle. In every rehab type thing, in every moment like that, what do you have to do? You have to recognize, you have to own up to what it is. Take responsibility. Identify where change needs to start. Can I tell you this real quick? Can I tell you that when you're beginning to identify where change starts, we say it like this. A religious spirit focuses on behavior modification. And real change is not behavior modification, it's heart transformation. True change will always start in the heart. So that's why we talk about having an authentic relationship with God, because God changes our heart. He cleanses us and changes us from the inside out. So you've got to identify where change needs to start. Then you have to identify what you're moving on from, because you can't defeat what you don't define. You can't overcome something if you don't know what you're trying to overcome. If you don't know what the bullseye is, how can you hit it? So you got to identify what you're moving on from, because if we fail to identify it, we're definitely going to repeat it. If you fail to plan what? You plan to fail. And then you have to identify what you want to become, right? What is that thing that you're trying to accomplish? What do I want to look like? Right? What is that thing? And then there's something you need to do. It's just so simple. Identify what I got to stop doing. I want this, so in order to get that, I need to stop doing this. So what cycle do we need to break? Right? Are you dealing with anger? You dealing with jealousy? You dealing with insecurity? Do you have a critical spirit about you? Are you just always pessimistic? Are you always that downer? Right? Are you always like, or is it a diet that you want to get on? Are you dealing with shame? Is it social media got you? Is it porn? Like, what is it that thing that you need to identify so that you can put a bullseye on it and say, this is the one? Some of you might need to go get your little journal and say, this is the thing. This is the cycle. Because if I can break this, I know I can get to the place I want to be. Draw a circle around it, then put the little line through it, as a visual that way. The second step that we need to do is, as you begin to identify what it is that's tripping you up or holding you hostage, then you need to remove the cue that's causing you to fall into that thing. And I've reduced it down to 4 things that I think cue us. These are the things that are a stumbling block for all of us. People, places, times, and moods. These 4 things are a cue for all of us. What do I mean by that? When it comes to people, when I'm around this group of people, I tend to act this way. Come on. How many of you know if you hang around with complainers, you're probably going to be a complainer? If you hang around people that criticize everything, you're probably going to be the one that does it, right? If you hang around someone, and I'm not picking here, but if all they do is want to talk politics and criticize this and criticize, then you're probably going to get drawn into it, and you're going to be into these type of things, right? When you're around certain people, you're going to probably become like those people. The bottom line is, if I'm around someone or if I'm that person, if I overeat everywhere I go and people hang around me, guess what they're probably going to do? They're probably going to overeat just like me. Because you're going to feel awkward if you only just eat your little bit. You're going to want to eat more. Next thing is places, right? What are the places? Or hold on, I want to share this scripture because I love this one so much. Proverbs 13:20 says, become wise by walking with the wise. Hang out with fools, watch this, and watch your life fall to pieces. Right? I mean, if you don't want to be foolish, stop hanging around foolish people. I mean, if you're hanging around with people that don't have any desire to become more in their life, you probably won't either. Get some people in your room that are doing more than you're doing, and watch how your life will begin to get better and stronger. Next thing is places, right? The cue for people, tell me who you're around, and I'll tell you probably what you're doing, right? If that's where you're spending the majority of time. Then there are certain places that aren't going to be conducive to the lifestyle that you want to live, right? I mean, if you're struggling with drugs, alcohol, those type of things, then you probably should stop going to the club. You should probably stop going to those parties. You should probably stop hanging around with the people that do those things and making excuses to think that it's okay, right? You want to stop the weed? You want to stop those things? Stop hanging around people that smoke those things. Right? That's just the bottom line. You won't be tempted to do it if you get, or how about this? If you struggle with drinking when you get home, stop driving by the liquor store on the way home. Right? Don't go down that street. You know it's there. If you're trying to quit smoking, guess what? Don't go to the break room or outside and stand where those that are smoking. You're going to be tempted, and you're not going to be able to overcome it. You're going to fall into it. And then you're going to wonder why you're smoking again. You trying to control your sweets? Forget that one. Hypothetically, let's say we weren't having a bake sale. Let's say we weren't doing that, right? So the thing I would say to you is, on Sunday mornings, don't go into the coffee room where the donuts are at Purpose Church, right? Make your coffee at home, and you won't be tempted to get the donut, right? I did this morning. Normally, when I buy the donuts for the church, then I make another purchase, and I buy my kids one donut each, and I usually buy one. I said this morning, because I knew there were going to be a bunch of sweet, I said nothing for me, right? Because I know I'm going to overindulge in the sweet treats. But I'm just trying to be in control of it, because if I don't, it will control me. You with me? I want to invite the worship team, as I got a couple more that I want to share with you. The next one is times. There are certain times of the day where you're more vulnerable than others. I learned this a long time ago when I was studying the life of David. As you begin to read through the accounts that talk about David's life, you come to this place where you read about David, and anybody heard about that lady named Bathsheba? Right? David and Bathsheba, you know about that, right? Well, there was a time in David's life where the Bible says, during this time of the year, the kings were supposed to be at war. David was supposed to be out on the battlefield, and instead the Bible says David stayed home. When David was supposed to be out on the battlefield with his military, he stayed home. When he was home, he decides to walk up to his palace top, and he looks out across the horizon, just by accident, I'm sure, and he sees Bathsheba. When he was not where he was supposed to be, the time, he falls into something, or how about like this? Scratch out falls, because we're so used to saying that. He stepped into it. How do you get there? One step at a time. How did David get there? One step at a time. He walked to the palace top when he should have been somewhere else. Most people don't wake up in the morning, pour themselves a cup of coffee, pull out their phone, and start watching porn. No, that's usually not when people find themselves doing something like that. It's usually when you're lonely, usually when you've just had maybe a fight with someone, maybe your spouse. it's when you're angry about something, and it's when you're alone. Those are moments that you need to be aware of, right? Times are important. When you're at church, for the most part, if you're struggling with drinking, when you're in these places, typically you're not drinking alcohol at church. You're typically not smoking cigarettes if you're trying to overcome that. These are places, times during your day that you typically don't do those things. When it comes to this next one, I think it's often one that is overlooked, and it's our moods. You got people, you got places, you got times, but then there are certain moods that you experience that often can facilitate a bad cycle in your life. Now, I will tell on myself and have no problem telling on myself, but there's an acronym that we use, and it's not something that I coined, but it's used all over in counseling, but it's HALT, HALT. When you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're lonely, when you're tired, be on guard. Because those are moments when you're most vulnerable to say something you shouldn't say, do something you shouldn't do. Bottom line. For the top two there, hungry and angry, they run together for me. When I get hungry, I get hangry. My son, spitting image. We have the same mannerisms, whatever. He gets hungry, watch out. Like, that boy is the sweetest boy in the world, but let him get hungry. And you're like, whose kid is this? Chantel's like, he's yours. Because I'm the same way. Like, and I'm guilty though, not like him. He don't want to miss a meal. I'll skip meals, and then all of a sudden I wonder why I'm hangry. I wonder why I'm short with my wife. I wonder why I'm short about this. I wonder why I'm easily triggered about that, right? Because I'm hangry. I mean, just alone when you're angry is not the time to respond to the situation, because you don't usually respond, you react. When you're angry, you're going to react to a coworker, you're going to react to your boss, you're going to react to your spouse, you're going to react to something you saw on social media and do something that is not the type of thing that you want to do for the life you want to live. You with me this morning? Become vulnerable. When you're tired, you're vulnerable. When you're lonely, you're vulnerable. These are things that you have to do this. I say, interrupt the action. Now, how do I interrupt the people, the places, the times, the moods? How do I do this? Pre-choice choices. You need to make some choices before you get into battle so that you can pull them out of your tool belt to fight the situation, right? If you have a tendency to give in to someone when they text you and say, hey, you want to go over to so-and-so's house? Hey, you want to go here? Hey, you want to go there? Right? If you're trying to get your diet under control and someone invites you to an all-you-can-eat place, you need a pre-choice choice. You need a comeback, right? So you need to think through these situations that if you know you're because it's a cycle, right? You already know it's going to happen. You already know that if so-and-so texts me, if she texts me again, I'm going to have a hard time saying, no, I don't want to come over. If he texts me again, I'm going to have a hard time saying, no, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. You need a response before you get into this situation. Those are pre-choice choices. Because if you really want to break some cycles, right, you need to identify what the cycle is. Identify how it's continuing to recur in my life. So we remove the cue and we interrupt the action. There's a phrase that I use over and over. I didn't come up with this one either, but it's catch it, check it, change it. Often your challenges start right here in the thought process. When that thought comes into your mind that's going to perpetuate the cycle or fuel it back up again. Some of you are like, I made it 5 days. I made it 30 days. I'm 1 year into my sobriety. But know the thoughts can come back at any moment. I'm going to give you an example. There was a time last year, and I do this with all situations when I have it, but I was dealing with diverticulitis. One of the things that they gave me was Lortabs, hydrocodone. One of the things that I know is that my addiction started early on in my days because I was abusing hydrocodone. I loved the way that it made me feel. And it made me feel a certain way when I was lonely or I was depressed or whatever it might have been. My moods were there. So any time that I have medication, my wife knows that I'm going to have it. And I always tell them at the beginning, I'm like, what's the lowest number of those you can give me to get me through whatever it is you think I'm going to be going through? I'm not trying to I need a full prescription of that one, baby. Right? No, because I don't even trust myself to deal with that. Because I'm not going to play with something that's going to make me pay later. I am serious about standing in front of you next year and saying, I'm 23 years without using a drug, right? That's what I'm saying. You've got to get serious about this stuff. And so you can break the cycle today. I'm going to ask you to bow your head with me. Pre-choice choices, catch it, check it, change it. But it starts with our relationship with the Lord. And so if you're here with us this morning, you're watching online, your journey starts today. No, it doesn't matter how bad you've been. No, it doesn't matter how you've lacked a zeal to do this. Today is your day. Today is your day to get it right with God. You say, Pastor, how do I do that? You start a conversation with Him. It is relationship, relationship, relationship. I'll tell you the things the Bible says. That if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that God has raised Jesus from the dead, if you will call on the name of the Lord, the Bible says if you confess your sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us from all of our unrighteousness. If you make that a personal conversation, it might sound something like this: God, forgive me of all the things that I've done wrong. Forgive me for not taking these things seriously. Forgive me of whatever that sin is that you know. There's just a general prayer too that says, Lord, forgive me for all of my sins. I believe that you are the Son of God. I believe that you died for me. I believe that you rose from the dead. Now help me today to live a life that honors you. I know I can't do it on my own. Today, if you'll help me, Lord, I'm going to start this journey with you. That's how you pray. That's just real. I can't do it without you, Jesus. For everyone that as we're dealing with a cycle in our life, you need to begin to identify it right now. What's that one thing that you know is holding you hostage? What's that one thing that's keeping you from everything that God has? Thank you for watching Purpose Church YouTube channel. Before you go, would you hit the like and subscribe button to stay up on what's happening at Purpose Church? And make sure to share today's message with your friends and your family. If you'd like to support the ministries of Purpose Church, you can click the link in the comment section. And make sure to join us live on Sundays at 10:30 a.m.